Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a
What's
light
your
on
story?
incredible. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission? Welcome all to accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, where we shine a light on incredible individuals and organizations and the work that they do. I'm your host, Josh Basil. I'm a C4-5 quadriplegic, paralyzed below my shoulders, and a power wheelchair user. I'm the Community Relations Manager at accessiBe and a passionate disability rights advocate and trial attorney focused on breaking down barriers to access and inclusion for people with disabilities. Today on accessiBe Spotlight Sessions, we are joined by Pete Horsley, the founder of Remarkable Tech. Welcome, Pete.
Thanks, Josh. It's good to be with you.
I love that you're here today. And we were talking a second ago about you're in Australia, I'm in Washington, D.C., you're in the future, and we're talking about Remarkable Tech today. So let's dive into it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Pete.
Well, I'm a mid-40s man. I've got 3 kids. I've been working in the disability space for about 19 years. My sister has a number of different disabilities. My sister Jo was born blind. She's also autistic. And she's an incredible gift to the world, and certainly some of the drive behind some of the work that I get to do.
And tell us a little bit about the mission and origin story behind Remarkable Tech.
Yeah, so Remarkable is part of a larger disability organisation that was started by a group of people with cerebral palsy and their parents about 75 years ago, called Cerebral Palsy Alliance. And really, the origin story for Remarkable actually goes back to 2012 when we were running World Cerebral Palsy Day, and we didn't want it just to be a day for a day's sake. And so we asked the CP world, what are some of the things that would change your world? And we had people with CP submitting ideas from all over the world. One of those was a man by the name of Alpa. He was living in a small country town called Bursa in Turkey. And he said the thing that would change his world is a solar-powered wheelchair. And we were kind of interested, but kind of a little bit perplexed by the idea. We weren't quite sure kind of what was behind that. But he said, where I am has plenty of sun, but the powered chair that I've got actually has an old battery now. I can't afford to buy a new one, and it doesn't hold a charge for long enough. So where he could afford to live was quite a way out of town. Where all the jobs were actually in town, a little way away. And so he said a solar-powered wheelchair would enable me to kind of get over that barrier. He also told us that there was a temple on the other side of town that he wanted to worship in, and he wasn't able to get there. So we put it out to the worldwide maker community. We couldn't make solar-powered wheelchairs at the time, but we put it out to the worldwide maker community and said, can anyone make it? And we had a university in Virginia, actually, that said, yes, we'd love to take that on. So they produced a prototype of it. It was kind of pretty clunky. It was like a few panels on top with a kind of rudimentary frame, a few wires kind of hanging out. But the thing was, it worked. It drew the power of the sun, it put it into a battery, and it powered this powered wheelchair. And so we gave them some extra money to ship the prototype over to Alpa. And the day that he received that powered wheelchair, he sent us a photo outside the temple, and he said, this is where I needed to be, thank you. About 6 weeks later, he said to us, I've got a part-time job. And so we were excited to see the role that technology could play in overcoming some of the barriers that exist in our society. Often human-created technology, human-created barriers. But that was just one wheelchair and one person. And so we started to think about how do we do this at scale? And we were excited to be part of co-creation through things like design-a-thons, where we would get engineers and makers together, and they obviously included people with disability. People with disability are engineers and makers and creators as well. And we got that community together to listen and solve problems that were identified by the disability community. And from there, we said we need to kind of support these early stage prototypes to try and get them to scale. And that was really how Remarkable was born in 2016.
That is most definitely a life that was changed. And it's just when you hear, at least when I hear that story, I know for sure that this catalyzes others. Like, I want to get involved. I want to do this. I want to fund this. I want to be a part of this movement. Like, and your name is so remarkable. That's just a solar power wheelchair. That is remarkable tech right there. That is so cool. And
Thank you.
Tell me more about kind of your role currently with Remarkable Tech, and what does the day-to-day look like?
So I'm part of the team. I lead the team, and we've just grown. We now have 8 people in the team, and they're kind of spread actually all over the world. So we currently have George, our operations manager in London. We have Molly in Boston. We have Viv in Wollongong, kind of south of Sydney. Philippa, who's in Manly in Sydney. Cynthia in North Sydney. Kiralee, who's also in close to North Sydney, and Lisa, who's in Manly as well. So we've got an incredible team, and Zara as well. Sorry, Zara has just joined us. She's down in Kiama. An incredible team, and really the day-to-day is about how do we support startups in the best possible way. So they are convening either sessions or meetings. They are convening masterclasses and learnings. They are convening opportunities for these startups to meet with key people. But really our entire focus is how do we get technology faster into the hands of people with disability? How do we start to break down some of the barriers that inevitably humans have created through the ways that they haven't designed accessibly? And instead, how do we open up a new world where we start to realize that lots of the world's technology was actually first created by and with people with disability. Things like the keyboard and speech to text, text to speech. All of these things were created first and foremost to overcome a barrier that people were finding. And we want to rediscover that. We want to kind of go back to our roots of innovation and say the disability community is actually a rich source of innovation. And we just want to grow that.
And you mentioned earlier about the Designathon. Can you tell us some of the things that have come out of it?
Yeah, so some of the I remember the earliest ones that we did. We had things like there was a team actually trying to develop a way of being able to, for people who are using a white cane, to be able to sense where their guide dog had just been to the bathroom, because that was a difficult task for someone who was blind, was to clean up after their...
That could be a dirty task.
Exactly. That was kind of a fun one, I guess. But we've seen other things kind of come out of it. Like we had a company that actually emerged from that called Homeable, really looking at smart home technology in the way that it could be made far more accessible for a greater range of people who could benefit really the most from smart home technology. And so they co-designed a process and a system of being able to identify the needs and then to be able to install those in people's homes. So quite a range of things. And even though we are founded by and part of Cerebral Palsy Alliance, we actually look at every disability. We do see that there are needs that kind of cross over between a whole bunch of different areas. And so each year we take on a few different themes. This year we're taking on things around pain communication. So for someone who is nonverbal, how can we better understand pain from either a caregiver's perspective or from the person themselves, that they can communicate that. We're looking at AI. AI is obviously kind of slammed into our worlds of late. And there are so many things and so many possibilities that we could get from AI. And yet we're already seeing that it's started to be built with barriers in the way. It's not necessarily as accessible as it could be. And so we want to try and start right with the building blocks of making sure that technology is available to everyone. And then the last one is around employment. Employment seems to still be a stuck issue around the disability sector, and we want to see some change to that. I don't know if we can pull it off, but we're going to create a space for a co-designed, inclusive design experience for people to see if they can come up with some solutions.
And that's awesome. And how are you helping disability-focused startups these days?
Yeah, so I guess that predominantly happens through a couple of different programs that we then run. So we started a new program last year called Launcher. Launcher is a global program. It's available to any startup or any even idea stage company that's starting to think about solving a particular problem within the disability space. And that is an 8-week part-time, very, very part-time experience, really trying to look and understand and validate kind of the problem and validate the solution that you're trying to solve. So, and we do a lot of that through customer interviews, a lot of that through understanding the market, a lot of that through testing and iterating on the kind of solution that you've got. So that's the Launcher program. Then the next program along, it's kind of a progression, is our Accelerator program. And that is for post-product companies that have started to perhaps have a little bit of revenue, but they're really trying to think about how do we grow into this market? How do we become a successful and sustainable business? And so that is really around understanding what's called your go-to-market strategy, or how you actually commercialize that technology. And we do things in there around pricing, around business models, around understanding if you are going to seek outside investment, what does that need to look like, and what are investors actually looking for? And understanding your balance sheet. How do you kind of understand what are the kind of business fundamentals that you need to have around governance and finance? So that program is a 16-week program. In the States, we give a $55,000 investment into your company. In Australia, it's $75,000 into the company, just equating for the currency differences. And we match you up with coaches. We have a huge mentor community as well, that sharpshooters that can kind of help supercharge your business as well.
That's awesome. I love that. Everything you're saying is just so cool. It's so awesome. And when it comes to, I'd love to hear about like a startup that Remarkable Tech kind of got behind. And also if you can share a little bit about kind of the founder stories series that you have going on.
Yeah, so I'll choose one from that group. Kyoki King, he got in. We had been kind of discussing things online for quite some time. Kyoki's in San Francisco. He had been part of the kind of wheelchair manufacturing scene in global kind of markets, but was really seeing kind of the challenges that particularly low and middle income countries had around having appropriate wheelchairs that perhaps could tilt, could fold. And he thought that there was a better way of being able to kind of produce those. And so he got together with his co-founder, who was a wheelchair user, and an engineer, and said, how do we do this? And how do we do this in a much better and make it much more accessible? Because accessibility isn't just about physical accessibility. It can also be about, can I afford it? Can I get access to it? Can I have someone that fixes it? And so they started to take on these challenges, and they launched their organization called Participant. And you can see his founder story actually on our YouTube channel. It's a great story of some of the hurdles and some of the things that they didn't even foresee that they were actually putting some more hurdles in place. The first volume or the first version of their wheelchair actually didn't fold. And then he found out that actually put a barrier in the way of someone getting to school. And so you can see some more of that founder story on our YouTube site.
So when you hear the word accessibility, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it is a wider definition than perhaps what we all think about in terms of accessibility. I think accessibility for me is about, obviously the word comes from access, and it is about access from a number of different vectors, I guess. It is physical access. It is feeling like this was designed for me. I think that we are living in an age where we have technology that can understand my personal needs. I use Spotify to listen to music, and it understands the types of music that I like. It doesn't necessarily put up kind of German waltzes or something like that for me to listen to. It understands the kind of music that I really do like to listen to. And really, we have the opportunity now for other technologies in our lives to understand who we are and to adapt to our needs. So I think accessibility is around that physical accessibility. But as I said, I think accessibility can also be around cost and being able to afford that particular product. It is about kind of having the same experiences as everyone else. And so really, for me, accessibility is a rights issue. It really should be something that we all have the same rights to have access to things that we enjoy, things that improve our life. Really, every piece of technology that we use is an assistive technology. It assists us to do something better, faster, enables us to do things in different ways. And so we just need to have a wider understanding of what assistive technology needs to include.
And having that equal access to tech in the world around you, it leads to opportunities. It gives you a chance to dance, a chance to thrive, not only survive, but thrive. It's a beautiful thing. And
we always say that everyone is remarkable, but we're not always given the opportunity to be remarkable. So we want everyone to be remarkable.
I can get behind that. And within the business world, what can we do? What can businesses do better when it comes to prioritizing access and inclusion for people with disabilities?
I think, firstly, it is about understanding the market opportunity that they might be missing. So we know from statistics around the world that somewhere between 15 and 20% of the population has some form of disability. As we age, we are likely to have other parts of our life that might become impaired. And so whether we are living with disability now, or whether we will into the future, or whether we have temporary disability, there are aspects of that if we're not designing for, then we're ignoring part of the market that potentially is a source of revenue. And so I think that in order to do that well, then the primary thing that we need to do is to understand the disability market, to understand who it is that we're trying to incorporate in our products and services. And the best way to do that is to have people with disability in leadership positions within our businesses, to understand what are, in the same way that we kind of go, how do we reach millennials with this particular product? We need to have the same kind of intent around thinking about how do we reach the various kinds of communities that emerge out of the disability community, and so it's I guess thinking about it in a different way. It's not thinking about that's for someone else to kind of take care of over there. Think about it in an opportunity sense. Here is a wider market that potentially we haven't reached before, that if we make sure that our products and services are accessible, then we can potentially we can receive more revenue. We can have a wider representation of the community actually using our products and services.
Thank you, Pete, for all that you do for the community, all that you give back, and all that you continue to do. It's amazing, and I love hearing about it. I want to hear more about it. And just thank you, Pete, for being our guest today on accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Josh. And you keep up the great work that you're doing as well in shining the spotlight on amazing people around the world. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Pete. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for staying to the end of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow us at accessiBe_community. And as always, thank you so much for being on this journey with us. Take care, everyone. Bye, Pete.